Yeah. So hi everyone, thank you for joining. This is the first of the 4 live sessions we're going to have to kick off the mobile training. As you all know, mobile is very important for the strategy of Google and DACH Ads as well. And to start today, we have Jeremy from the agency team in Hamburg. He is a creative evangelist, and maybe you can introduce yourself better than me.
Okay, yeah, I can, I guess. No, yeah, so I work with, I work with agencies, but what I do a lot more is work with brands and do a lot of public speaking. So last week I was at an event in Berlin with ThyssenKrupp. They make elevators and stuff, and it was just like 40 of their Vorstand, director level, chairman of the board type people, and just talking to them about like transformation, digital, and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I do, yeah.
Cool. So we're ready to start whenever you want.
Okay, so this, we talked about this, and this is a work in progress, and I use Keynote, so some of the videos are going to be kind of sketchy, because it just doesn't work over the air that good, but hopefully you'll get the gist of what I'm talking about. And just holler if you can't hear me or anything, right? So as you know, this is a work in progress. So I'm going to be in Brussels in like a couple weeks. I'm presenting. It's a mobile conference as well. I'm presenting there, so I'll probably use part of this. But so I'll just get started. And if you have any questions, just holler or say something, because this is it's very informal. Okay. So this is something I've been talking about a lot in this past year actually, and what this means is the things we choose to surround ourselves shape what we become. What that means is obviously that has to do with things, you know, like cars or people and stuff, but also our mindsets, you know. And I think one thing at Google we have an advantage of is we're very open to new things. Hopefully, you know, we're very googly, question status quo. But a lot of times when you go visit your clients, they have a very fixed mindset, which is very classic. And I think that's what I work with. That's the huge challenge. How do you take someone like a ThyssenKrupp or like a like BMW, and they're very fixed in their ways, and how do you move them ahead to what you guys were trying to do, which is whatever it might be. For a lot of people at Google, it's selling something or doing something. So what happens is you have a lot of people that doubt, so they don't believe in what's, you know, in the future basically, you know. So here, this quote from 1800s, and what happens is basically Carl Benz invents the car, and it becomes like a huge part of our lives. And nobody has relationships with horses anymore, whereas it used to be like we all used to have horses and stuff. But now, unless you're into hobby riding or playing polo or something, nobody has a relationship with horses. So and I have 3 of these examples, and these are, you know, what I use to open people up a little bit. So, because you always have people in companies that doubt things, you know, they're always like, you know, mobile is not going to be that big or whatever it might be. So this quote as well, heavier than air flying machines are impossible, and as we know, we do fly. This was Kitty Hawk. This was the first airplane to take flight, and like I just said, we all fly, and it's almost incredible. It's almost, I mean, unbelievable that we are able to fly with these machines that are, you know, like several tons, but it's possible if you put your minds to it. And then this quote from Ken Olsen in 1977, a little more relevant. There's no reason to have a computer at home, basically. And as we know, that changed a lot in the 80s and 90s. And this is the Mac team from Apple, team that worked on the Mac. And what I do when I present, the hardest part, I think, is getting the opener. And this opener is, you know, for the non-believers, basically, people that don't believe. So I think when you have your basic presentation, so I'll talk a little about presenting, you have all the data, and that's fine, and all the content, but you always have to tailor it. And this is what I see at Google a lot. People don't do. You get a presentation, like if I was to share this with you, and let's say you're going to go visit someone that works on cat food. I don't know. Let's say someone that works on cat food. So obviously the intro would not make sense that much. So you would want to do maybe the horse thing and a few other animal things. But you have to tailor your presentations to who you're speaking to. And I see that a lot at Google, that people don't do that. That's why I tend not to share my presentations, because people just take it and then present it as is. And we talked about this in the prep meeting, is if you have a meeting that you're going to attend, or some high-level meeting, then I'd be more than happy to help you, whoever it might be, and come and help you or talk over the phone or whatever you see. How can you tailor your presentation? So now we'll get into the subject. So, I guess a lot of you were not around in 1984, but this was the brick. This was the first phone, basically. And what's interesting with the phone is nobody really believed it would be anything. And especially experts. Hello. Hey, now you. So if you think about the phone itself, 1984, this is what happened. So McKinsey estimated, you guys know McKinsey, we have some ex-McKinsey people on Google. They estimated in 1986, is 2 years later, that cell phones would there'd be about 1 million units, so 100 million or 1 million units within the marketplace. Based on this data, based on this expert advice, AT&T, which is a big company in the U.S. like telecom here, decides to not invest in it. So they decide, okay, we're not going to go into the cell phone business. We're going to take ourselves out of it, based on the expert advice from McKinsey, because it obviously didn't make sense if they say, okay, and we aren't going to have many phones, then why invest in it? What happened was McKinsey was off by 108 million units. So they were 10,000% wrong, and that's kind of like, oh shit, And my point there being, experts are becoming irrelevant quicker. So a lot of times you have these experts in the market, and you guys will definitely be confronted with some of them, and they'll try to challenge you on something. But anytime we're talking about exponential technology or something that is not so predictable, then they're typically going to be wrong. And this is just a good example of that, where they were incredibly wrong. It was a very expensive study for AT&T, and in the end, they just, it didn't work out. Hopefully, McKinsey got fired. But I think it's becoming harder to predict these things. Like I said, with exponential technologies, it's becoming harder to predict what's going to happen in the future. So if we say 5 years, everybody's going to have wearable computing, might be or might not be, or in 5 years, everyone's going to have driverless cars, it might or might not be. But the point there is you have to take the data and take what you know behaviorally, how people use technology, and then make your own judgment call. Because if we rely only on data, then there's a chance that it might not work out, like in this case. That being said, all progress depends on unreasonable demand. And what that means is basically, if you think of everything, all of the things that we do at Google especially, but in any other area like what I showed before, the car, the plane, the personal computer, these are all things that are not really, you couldn't really predict, And people are always going to be doubters, and that's why you have to think about what is really happening, and who do you really listen to, and how are you going to sell this up to your clients. So here's Martin Cooper. He invented the phone, 1984 cell phone, and obviously Steve Jobs, he invented the modern day phone. When was this? In 2006, I believe, right? And these two men basically changed the face of how we communicate, I would say. I mean, you could argue that, but I think it's definitely how we communicate. So really, to understand the business opportunities, you have to understand people's motivations and behaviors. So for me, it's less about the technology, how cool something is or whatever it might be. Good example of that is Google Glass. Definitely made sense because we want to do things while having our hands tied up, but it just didn't work out for whatever reasons. But you have to understand, for me, less the tech, because the tech is easy because we work at Google, right? Or what are people's motivations and behaviors? So this is a video, this next one, and it's going to be kind of choppy because it's over the air. But you guys, you probably have seen this.
Better angle.
You guys have seen this, right?
Check it.
So these are girls at a
one of the
baseball game.
300 pictures I've taken of myself today. Every girl in the picture is locked into her phone.
Oh, Lord.
Every single one is dialed in. Welcome to parenting in 2015. They're all just complete. Oh, hold on. I'd take a selfie with the hot dog. Selfie with the churro. Selfie just of a selfie. A single here in the fourth. And nobody noticed. He just collects all the phones. You're not getting them back to the end of the game.
You guys, I guess you've seen this. This is viral. I mean, this has gone viral. And what's interesting with this is really about behavior, right, and motivations, and it kind of plays to what I was saying. Unless you know the full picture, the full context, then you don't really understand what's happening in this thing. It is funny. It's kind of mean actually because the guy's mocking him too. And what happened is they were at this baseball game and they were asked to take selfies. So everybody in the crowd was asked to take selfies. It's not like they were doing selfies just because they were not watching the game, but they were asked to take them. So what you need to know about what happened. Number one, they were asked. The audience at the baseball game was asked to tweet selfies as part of the contest. So there was a contest where you could win something. So they did it, you know, and they did it quite well. But all of a sudden, the announcers started mocking them, which was pretty kind of unfair. So they did what they were asked. They took selfies, and they participated in this engagement that they tried to drive, right? And by the looks of it, they had fun doing it. They were being silly, enjoying themselves. But for this, the announcers mocked them, they shamed them, and it went viral. You know, you have one thing, you have these girls, which are, a lot of people just don't understand selfies. I guess most of us are pretty young here, so we understand this idea with selfies. But like the announcers are older, so they don't really understand the context, unless they have kids, you know. But I mean, you see this everywhere you guys go, you know. Like we had, a couple years ago, we had Macklemore, and people would go by the stage and take selfies with Macklemore, or try to. And this is something that's a behavioral, you know, something that's happening right now. But and that's what you're trying to tap upon when you visit your clients. What are some actual trends, or not even trends, actual things, behaviors that people are doing? And how can you know, bring those up? So in the end, what happened is, to apologize for the viral shaming from Fox Sports, they offered the girls free tickets because, you know, they kind of shame them into, okay, they're mocking them and stuff. And the girls kind of twisted it into a win for themselves. Because what they did, here are the girls again, a little animated GIF. It's actually quite, I find it quite entertaining actually watching it. But what they did, they said, okay, we aren't going to take your, you know, your donation of tickets, but it'd be great if you could donate these to something, to this domestic violence awareness month actually. So they took it and they did it for something else. So my point there is to really understand these videos and how people use mobile, you have to understand the full context. And then for most of us, we just had part of the context, which are these girls are doing selfies in a baseball game, which was, I thought it was, you know, funny at the time. But until you know the full picture that everybody was asked to do it, then you can't really, it's hard to really have an opinion about it. Solid. It's data basically, right? That being said, you've seen this as well, 25 years to 3 billion. It took us 5 years to reach 3 billion people using the internet, and it's predicted in the next, next few years, we're going to grow. And this is what I mean by exponential. There's going to be exponential growth. And for your clients, when you're talking to your clients, you can just talk about, most people are not going to be connected to the web through the internet, through the internet, yes, but the desktop, through their mobile phone. And the question is, how do you make that clear for your clients? You know, how can you make that so relevant that they should focus on mobile, you know, mobile first? So let's look at a few things. This chart you might have seen before. I use this quite often. So really it's about users. So how long does it take to reach 50 million users? It's evolution of adoption. So radio took 40 years. This is in German, actually. Television, 10 years. iPhone, 3 years. And YouTube took 6 months. And that shows, I think that's a really good indication to show what I mean by exponential, how things are so quickly adopted. And the phone is up there. You know, iPhone took 3 years, and I guess Android took even quicker. So another thing, Grumpy Cat, right? Also a phenomenon in itself, and it uses all those technologies that I played in the beginning, you know, that I just showed that chart. So interesting, the backstory behind Grumpy Cat is basically there's a waitress in the U.S. and she had Grumpy Cat, and she knew she had a strange-looking cat. And her boyfriend took a photo of it and shared it on Reddit. So most people don't know what Reddit is, but it's a website where people talk about internet culture and other things. And all of a sudden, Grumpy Cat got extremely famous and popular. So just to show how that played out, evolution of popularity. So in 2012, 2 years, Gwyneth Paltrow made about 30 million. I think all of us would be okay with 30 million in the last 2 years, right? Maybe not Sundar, but I think we'd be okay with it. But if you look at Grumpy Cat, it's estimated that Grumpy Cat made 100 million. It's 3 times more in the last 2 years. And this is what I mean by this could have not happened without having YouTube or having mobile phones with cameras and cheap things. And this is what happens when technology becomes more accessible, like mobile phones. People are just do things randomly, and they don't know if they're going to be hit or not. But I don't think any company could have, any company would have planned, okay, we're going to create a Grumpy Cat, and it's going to cost 0 money for him to make 100 million. If you think of Gwyneth Paltrow, so basically this is a chart of old and new. The old way is Gwyneth Paltrow with all the marketing money that is put behind movies, whatever else she does, and then you have Grumpy Cat, which is just some strange-looking cat. And you're probably wondering, how can this happen? For one thing, I go to Minnesota, that's where I'm from, and I took a photo of this in a really small town. And Grumpy Cat is like the Hello Kitty of the internet generation. So you can buy so many Grumpy Cat swag that there's a reason Grumpy Cat's making that much money. And also, Grumpy Cat makes appearances, so he goes like South by Southwest and other things, and does commercials. So what happened is the waitress became the manager for Grumpy Cat. And I think that's the kind of world we're living in. When I show this chart, I think it's kind of a shock for people. Well.
Next.
Who's loud? I don't know. Okay. So we have to think about, when you think about mobile, you have to think about the things we have and the thing we pay for. And people pay for things they value, right? So if we break this down, maybe you've seen this chart because I did this for a mobile narrative. But the things that we own is quite large. So if you think about your apartment or your home where you live, you have a bunch of stuff, right? But what you actually carry with you is smaller. And then what you actually carry with you and use, that's even smaller. So if you look in your bag, it's really revealing to see what do people carry with them, what do they use? Because those are the things that are truly valuable. So what I would do in this case is have people reflect or actually look in your bag and what's in your bag. And this is something you see on the internet as well. These videos, what's in your bag. So people just empty out their purses or their backpacks and just show them. And it's quite revealing. So this person, the first guy would be like a photographer, obviously. The guy in the upper left, you can tell he likes spicy food because he has this hot sauce. The guy in the lower left, he's some survivalist, I think. He's got some knife and stuff. But I think it's really revealing to see this. And this plays into the mobile phone. The most common thing that we bring with us now is the mobile phone, and that's what they all have in common. The smartphone is something that is so appealing. So I find it, this is an open question kind of, but I find it so strange that mobile is not a topic for a lot of people. But it's also a question of comfort zone. So the 3 most common things we bring with us are keys, money, and mobile phone. And the keys and money will be replaced. If you've been to the U.S. anytime lately, you know that Apple Pay is quite large, or we're trying Google Wallet. But actually, you don't need to bring monetary. You don't need to bring cash with you that much. And these things represent things as well. So keys represent shelter, security, and transportation. Money, obviously, clothing, food, and safety. For example, insurance. The mobile phone belongs for, it has a bunch of things. So love, belonging. This is an Instagram. Represents friendship, intimacy, and family. Mobile phone also represents esteem. So here I think I posted something on Facebook. So being accepted and valued by others. But also this idea of self-actualization. Here is Strava. It's a quantified self, running app. So it tracks where you've run and stuff. And so the mobile phone is slowly replacing a lot of the things that we value. So you guys probably know this, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And what's happening is the mobile phone is taking the upper levels of things. And this is really basic psychology. So physiological are keys on the bottom, safety is money, and then the mobile phone is, taking the top pyramid. And that's why mobile, one thing you could also say when you talk to your clients is mobile is one of the most #1 priority at Google as well. Because we make all our money in AdWords, and the paradigm is the desktop, the model is desktop. As soon as you move away from the desktop, we're going to have less money, Google is. And that's a huge priority for us as well. But that you've seen this as well. Then you have Wi-Fi, battery life. That all goes underneath. But that's what's happening. And I think when you present, it's good to break it up with charts, but also put some humor because it kind of engages the audience as well. But that's also true. It kind of sucks when you don't have connectivity or your battery's dead. So this is called Rogers adoption curve, and hopefully none of your clients are laggards, because those are people that are just do not believe in it and they won't invest in it no matter what. The late majority are also kind of tough, but this is where you want to get. And young people today, young people like yourselves and people in tech and innovators, they're early adopters, or they're actually creating things, and they're value driven. If you have clients in this second circle, the price driven, then you have a bigger struggle. And that's where you have to try to shift them into the first thing. But it's possible. You just have to prove it somehow. So the takeaway is companies that understand the power of mobile will win, as they will create products and services that address the true wants and needs of people. And that's pretty easy. You think about Amazon. Now, Amazon's a huge competitor of Google, because if you think about the sales funnel, it's large at the top, and then it tapers down. What Amazon does is they reverse the funnel. All of a sudden, it becomes a pyramid. So if I'm an Amazon Prime customer like him, I don't need to look on Google for something. I'll just see if there's a Prime, they sell it on Amazon, and I'll just have it ordered one-click shopping. And they pretty much kill the whole AdWords model. I think that's what's interesting right now as well. What are other models that are basically killing the whole search thing? Apps to some degree, I would say. If you're in app, obviously you don't need to use Google at all. So those are the things that are worrisome for us as a company, but also you have to talk about that with your clients as well. So this is kind of getting more future thinking, but the point here is mobile tends to be the thing between you and light. Mobile is binary, so either you're looking at your mobile phone or you're looking at your surroundings, and that's a problem. That's what we call FOMO. And here's a severe case of FOMO, or fear of missing out. You have this guy dancing with his partner, and he's checking out his phone. That's not very cool.
I thought he was taking a selfie.
Or maybe he's getting advice for next moves or whatever. But we don't know. I think we're kind of getting there with wearable tech. I guess some of you have the watch or whatever. I prefer the Apple Watch, but we're kind of getting there. But it's still kind of a strange paradigm, because you always when you look at your watch, when you get a notification, people think, oh, am I boring him? Does he have to go somewhere? What's happening? We aren't quite there yet. But if you think about pervasive computing, and this is kind of a tangent to mobile, but this is where mobile is going, in my opinion. And it basically it's I think Google is really about artificial intelligence. So the more, if you know anything about artificial intelligence, AI, the more input you have, the better your intelligence. And Google is the best position for that, actually. So pervasive computer AI lets you just do what you want to do, which is in this case, KISS. So what happens is basically, this is where a lot of our companies are. I would say most of our companies and most of the people, and maybe some people at Google, they feel very comfortable here. But all the cool stuff, like I said in the beginning, is happening outside that. And that's where you need to get your client, basically. So how do you get them outside their comfort zone? How do you get them uncomfortably excited about mobile in this case? And I don't know if you guys are into reading books at all, but there's a few books that kind of predate, kind of predict what's happening, and these are sci-fi kind of like, but it's not like Philip K. Dick sci-fi. I won't go into this too much, but you can ask me up here. Ready Player One if you're into 80s and 90s pop culture. And then we have the whole AI stuff, which is Ex Machina, and these are all very dystopian, very dark. Even Her is kind of dark. Have everyone seen Her? Her is a great movie. What happens is basically, for those that haven't seen it, this guy falls in love with his operating system. So it'd be like falling in love with Siri. But Siri is actually Scarlett Johansson, the voice of Scarlett Johansson. She's incredibly sexy, so it's a very compelling operating system, I guess. And the guy's kind of lonely too. He just doesn't make it. But I think what's interesting, if you watch Her and stuff, I think you have to get out there and actually form your own opinion about where things are going when you talk to your clients. Because if you watch Her and these other things to some degree, less Ex Machina, Blade Runner, more about Her, you can see where mobile in this vision is going. It's basically all input is spoken word, so it's kind of the Glass paradigm, Google Glass paradigm. And a lot of stuff is happening in the background, like Google Now. It's having things that actually help you. And I think that's where we're going. And I think if you can build a convincing vision for your clients, then they're going to be more open to working with you. and taking your opinion. And I think that's the whole point. How can you inspire or create a vision that is so compelling that they want to work with you instead of just going in and trying to sell things, which happens a lot at Google. I'm just going to skip over these because these are just...
Do you know what the Turing test?
These are just Turing test things, basically, and it's the man machine. This is kind of nice.
How would you describe your...
Skip over these. Also Turing test. But what's happening is basically, and this scares clients as well too, is robots are slowly taking over a lot of things. So we travel a lot, my family, and this is in Sweden a couple of years ago, and this is a robot just mowing the lawn. And you don't really pay attention to it because it's just mowing the lawn, right? And that's where a lot of robots are helpful, when you don't think about them as, oh, they're going to take my job or something. Just like Google now, I think a lot of people freak out about it, especially in Germany, because it means more data, but it can be actually quite helpful. And that's when the mobile phone becomes really interesting in technology, when it becomes helpful in the background. So what was I going to say here? Oh yeah, and this is every year we get 3D prints, my family and I. This is kind of future music as well. And so instead of focusing on tech, I think you have to focus on how people grow up today. So if you think about kids today, like my kids are 6 and 9, I don't think they'll ever need a driver's license at all. And that's actually the main goal of the lead engineer at Google. Is I think his kid is going to turn 16 in like 3 years, and he wants to make it so his kid doesn't need to have a driver's license. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully you learned something, and we can definitely take questions. I'm gonna, this is kind of also philosophy and stuff, but I think it's true. I think I think the hard part, let's reflect back. So you guys are gonna go visit clients, right? Like all of us do. Number one is you have to figure out what are you gonna offer your client, the person you're speaking to, more than that they can already get. Why should they listen to you? Just like any situation. I think a lot of times what happens at Google is, what I hear is people go in and they try to sell them things. I think they like to listen to people that go and try not to sell them things, but try to talk them into, have a conversation with them and tell them, this is what we think, because we're, based on where I work and what I've done and stuff, and this is what I think, and this is why you should think about this as well. How do you inspire people to a certain vision? And obviously in this case it would be mobile. There's no denying that mobile is going to be huge, as it already is. And then number two is then you come up with the sales stuff afterwards. But the sales part, for me, is personally boring. First, you have to inspire them to listen to you and get them to listen to you and engage them, and then move forward. So this is what you call a droning. You guys know what a selfie is? This is actually not a droning, but this is filmed with a drone. With a drone, I have a drone as well. And if a droning would actually be a selfie with a drone, that's basically this. So we can play Madonna because this is a really big song, borderline, and I think we're kind of on the edge of different borders. So that's pretty much it. Do you guys have any questions or anything? Let me kill that. Let me kill this. Do you guys have any questions?
So do you ever come across people that you don't dare appearing insane?
Me?
According to the last.
I've had I had a talk at USM. They make furniture. It's like upscale mobile modular furniture from Switzerland, and the audience there was like I guess average age was like 50, and the sponsor was like Porsche. So it's a different, those are the people that have a relationship with horses. They play polo and stuff like that. And one older guy came up to me and said, "Are you scared of what you just presented?" I said, "No, because that's just the way reality. Either you can take an interest in it or you can try to ignore it, but in the end it's going to happen." And that's why I think it's so interesting to observe like the girls taking selfies. Observe younger people, like some of our colleagues, because those are the people that are going to define how we use media in the future. Like Snapchat, Instagram to some degree now. Facebook is like Internet 1.0. And you have all the parents on there posting stuff. Yeah, I'm hanging out with, it's kind of embarrassing, I find, like some of my clients at like Kemper or Think or Young Matter what, at least ad agency, they post things like selfies with whoever. And obviously who wants to hang out on a platform when your parents are posting stuff? So it just, for me, it obviously just doesn't make sense. But yeah, you get some people that don't believe. But I think that when you get the non-believers in there, then you show up with data as well. That's what this is like a kind of a C-level presentation. Then the appendix would be all this data that you guys have. Like, okay, we did all this, we have all this data, and we can prove that actually it's better to whatever it might be, whatever you're trying to convince. But you always have non-believers in the room, always. But in the end, what happens? You have it's like those 3 charts I showed in the beginning. We're always going to have a relationship with a horse or whatever. So, the cars are just a trend or whatever it might be. Will never fly.
Well, it's just that your problem may be that the topic is not how is it in 20 years, but in investment next year. And then I say, well, the horse is still here, and
that's true. But I think then you have those are the laggers, the adoption curve. And I don't know how you guys are set up as a team, but I guess some of you have to focus on those laggers, which would suck, but it's part of it. But the point there is if you have like multiple clients, what I personally would do, and if I was your manager, I'd say focus on the clients that really want to do something. Don't focus on the people that don't. It's just like if you want to hook up with, if you want to go out with somebody, you see someone at a bar, and you're trying to talk to them, you can either you can put all your energy to that person or try someone else when you know that person's saying no. You know what I'm saying? It's just a waste of time in my opinion.
Oh, well, but I just wouldn't want to scare people away from Google in general, just because they think you're crazy and only thinking about. I think people are scared. I think people are scared of Google anyway. No, seriously. If you look at Germany, if you look at DACH, Deutschland, and the Schweiz, people are scared of Google. But it's not just Google. I think they're scared of the data, and that I try to skirt that topic. But what I always say when it comes to data is think about a payback card or the Bunikowski or Rossmann or whatever, these loyalty cards. And in Germany, they're extremely popular. And what people don't understand is you have someone's whole purchase behavior in one thing, and that's what you're doing. But the overwhelming use case for those is I get 10 cents off shampoo or whatever. So people will give up their data. You just have to give them a good enough reason to do it. And in this case, we're not quite there here, but I think data will always win. When you have more information and data, you're definitely always going to win. Let's say another example is, let's say we're all flying together in a plane, and our connecting flight gets canceled, and I have an app that says I can look into and see what other flights are leaving, and you guys don't. So you guys are going to get stuck wherever it might be in Bosnia or whatever, I don't know, wherever, and I'll get the next flight out. So I think you have to create a scenario where it makes more sense than just it is. Obviously, you're going to always have people that are scared about the future and stuff, but that's it is. I try not to focus on that too much, but I always try to give them arguments why it makes sense. Like the payback card is an easy one because people know that, and people don't really think about that, Any other questions from you guys calling in? No questions?
Okay. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jeremy.
Cool.
It was great. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.